It's been a while since I last uploaded a video. This is partly due to my family summer holiday, but also because I've had some problems with my laptop. I've been thinking of getting a desktop for a while to use for video editing, so I bought a new Dell Inspiron desktop. This video is going to show how I set up dual boot between Windows 11 and Ubuntu 22.04 and some of the software I installed on Linux, including the Chrome web browser, OneDrive, and some programming and video editing tools. I'll then be uploading more videos on Maker projects in the near future. So some of the things I'll be covering: the steps I made to set up and prepare Windows 11 for dual boot, how to install Ubuntu and set that up for dual boot, including the setup for secure boot. One of the advantages of using Ubuntu, or one of the other variants over other Linux operating systems, is that it does support secure boot. Could also have used Fedora as well. Then look at some of the configuration changes I made to Ubuntu, and then some of the applications I installed. This includes traditional Linux applications such as GIMP, but also some apps for integration with Windows, including the OneDrive client. So these are some of the things I'll be doing in Windows, and this is going to be mainly based on screenshots, as I did this before I set up any video capturing for my screen. My first step with a new Windows PC is always to create a recovery USB flash drive. I then shrinked the size of the Windows partition to make space for Linux. I then disabled fast startup to prevent problems if I tried to access the Windows drive from Ubuntu, and then prepared the Ubuntu installer by downloading it and putting it onto a USB flash drive. The first thing I usually do is to create a Windows recovery USB drive. This is because I'm going to be making changes to the disk partitions, and if anything goes wrong, it means I can restore Windows 11 to its previous state. The recovery USB is easy enough to create, but it took a long time for me to do this. It's quite normal for it to take, say, a few hours, but in my case it took a lot longer. The first time I ran the tool to create the recovery disk, but when I returned to the PC after a few hours, it did not display the recovery disk software completion message, or any indication it had run. I suspect Windows 11 rebooted itself, but as I didn't know whether that had happened during or after the creation of the image, I was not sure whether it was safe to rely on the image or not. I then let Windows install the rest of its updates and rebooted it in the hope it wouldn't reboot mid creating the recovery drive. I then ran the recovery disk creation tool using a separate disk and left it running overnight. When I returned in the morning, it was still only partway through creating the recovery disk. It turned out this was due to a problem with the USB flash drive I was using. Even cancelling the recovery tool took a really long time. Third time lucky, and it took just about an hour, and finally I felt confident enough to start repartitioning, ready for Linux. So to create the flash drive, first search for the recovery tools from the Windows launcher. Click on Backup System Files option so that it will create a full backup. And then you need your USB flash drive. You need at least 32 gigabytes of space. It should detect the drive and you can then select it. Make sure there's no data on that drive that you want to keep, as it will all be overwritten. Finally, after about an hour or so, the recovery drive is ready. I suggest labeling the drive and storing it somewhere safe in case it's needed in future. The next step is to make space for Ubuntu to be installed. In this case, I have a single SSD drive, and I decided to partition it half for Windows and half for Ubuntu. I'll be adding another drive for additional storage in the future. Launch the disk management tool from the Windows Start button, and then this shows there's just one disk, disk 0, which is where I want to install Ubuntu. It has 5 partitions, the largest being the one called OS, and showing the C colon. This is the one we need to shrink. So right click on that drive and choose Shrink Volume. I then set the amount of space for Ubuntu, and I chose approximately half the total size and then click shrink to shrink that. And then you'll see a new partition marked with a black bar above it. This is marked as unallocated, which is fine, as Ubuntu can turn this into usable space and format the drive and everything else it needs to do. I also disabled fast startup in Windows. While you may not need to do this, it can be particularly useful if you want to access data on the Windows drive from Linux. The fast startup option is in the control panel in the Power Options System Settings. When you go into that, you may find that the option to turn it off is disabled. It's greyed out, as you can see here. So you have to click on the line that says change settings that are currently unavailable, and then that will enable the checkbox, and then you can set it. So to install Ubuntu, we first need to download the ISO image from the Ubuntu website. If you choose desktop, you may have a choice of two different versions. There may be an older version which has LTS, known as long-term support, and a new version which is the latest version. When I installed Ubuntu, the latest was the LTS version, so there was just the one shown, and that's 22.04, 2022 April. If you want the most stable version, then you can choose LTS, but I normally go for the latest version, even if it's not an LTS version. You also need some way to install that onto a USB drive. Ubuntu recommends using the Ballanet Etcher, which is shown here. Select the ISO image, insert and select your USB drive. Again, this will wipe all data, so make sure there's nothing you need on that drive. And then choose flash. It took just over 15 minutes to install the flash drive. You can now use that drive to boot into Ubuntu. Now to install Ubuntu. Once again, these are mainly going to be screenshots or even photos of the screen. This is because I hadn't yet set up any screen capture software, but later I'll show a video when it comes to installing the applications. So I'm going to cover booting to the USB, installing Ubuntu 22.04, setting a secure boot password and how this enables you to set up secure boot, and then I'm going to briefly mention Wayland versus x.org, as that's kind of important for certain things. So the first thing to do is to boot from the USB flash drive, which is the one that you prepared the Ubuntu image on. This is normally done by powering off the computer and then hitting a certain key when you power it on. On my Dell desktop that is F12, but it may be a different key depending upon the manufacturer. This will typically give a boot menu such as the one shown above. This is just a small portion of the screen on the Dell. And then this allows you to select the USB flash drive. After booting into Ubuntu, choose install and follow the instructions, picking the appropriate language, etc. One of the first things it displays is this screen asking what apps to install. For most, this will be a normal install. If you would like to install the third-party software, things like graphics drivers and Wi-Fi drivers, then you'll need to click the Install Third-Party Software button. This then provides the option to configure secure boot. This is an important step because otherwise the drivers won't be loaded if secure boot is on. When you choose that, then put in a password where it says choose a password, and then make sure you remember that, and I'll explain later where you need to enter that in to enable the secure boot. You'll be asked for an installation type, which determines if you will install alongside Windows or completely remove Windows. For dual boot, we obviously want to install alongside Windows. Assuming you've made space for Ubuntu on the same drive as Windows, then you can normally just choose the top option. If you have a more complicated requirement, then you can choose to partition the disks manually using the something else option. The first option is usually easiest, and it'll ask you to confirm before it makes the changes. You can then answer the questions as appropriate, providing your location and creating a username, etc., and then rebooting once complete. When you reboot, you should see this screen or something similar asking about whether to enroll for MOK. MOK stands for Machine Owner Key, which is used for the secure boot. If you're using Secure Boot and you want to use the proprietary drivers, then you will need to enter that password that you previously registered. So choose Enroll MOK, select Continue, enroll the keys, and then enter the password. You can then reboot, and Secure Boot will allow the loading of the proprietary drivers. Ubuntu now provides Wayland as an alternative for X.org. Wayland has some advantages in terms of clean code and performance. There are some applications and services that won't work with it. When I upgraded my laptop, it changed the default to Wayland, which prevented me from running the screen capture program that I use, Simple Screen Capture. However, in this install it defaults to X.org, which I believe is due to the Nvidia drivers. If you need to switch between the two, then look for the settings button in the bottom right hand corner of the login screen, which allows you to choose whichever you prefer. So here's a quick look around Ubuntu. The only thing I've installed software wise is Simple Screen Recorder, which is what I'm using to record this session. It's also got a Tascam audio recorder connected, which connected straight away, no drivers needed, anything like that, just plugged it in and I was able to use it. And I have got an external disk drive installed, but other than that, this is as it comes. See some of the applications that are installed, and just a quick look through. LibreOffice, obviously the Office tool, there's a couple of little games, Screen Capture, which I don't use, I use Simple Screen Recorder, and let me look on the second screen, a few other things there. We can also see a few of the applications that are installed on the side. I've got Firefox web browser. Now I stopped using Firefox, and I explained this in an earlier video, because when they moved to using Snapd for Firefox on my laptop, the performance was dreadful. It would take 5 minutes to launch, which was clearly unacceptable. But now it's on here, it seems to come up pretty much straight away. Which is quite good, so it's quite reasonable there. The Thunderbird email client, I'll be setting that up, trying to migrate my old archived settings and drives and things from my old machine, but that's something for another time. So really just going to show some of the software that's available and how you can install it. I'm now going to show some of the applications that I normally install. I mainly run free and open source software, but I also include some software that links to proprietary services such as Microsoft OneDrive, and even some proprietary pay-for software such as gaming. I'm going to be using various different ways to install the software, which will give you an idea of the different options available. Ubuntu has traditionally used the Debian package format, with packages ending with a .deb extension. This is still the dominant format for many of the software packages, but Ubuntu now appears to be moving towards bundling applications using Snap. I was aware of this, and I've had some bad experience when Firefox was first moved to Snap, as performance was really bad. Perhaps this was due to the way the OS had been upgraded, as it appears to have been fixed with this install. I've also discovered that whilst making this video, that for some applications there are both Debian and Snap versions available in the software install options, but the Snap version appears to be the more recent versions, so I've been installing some of those. I have encountered a few problems with some of these, and I'll explain a workaround at the end of this video. The first thing I'm going to install is the Chrome browser. That way I can use it to install the other programs. You do have a good choice of browsers on Ubuntu. The default is Firefox, or there is Chromium, which is Chrome with some of the proprietary things stripped out. But if you want to run the normal Google Chrome browser, then you can go to their website and download it from there. So if you click on Get Chrome, it detects we're on Linux, and it's going to offer a 64-bit Debian package, which is what we get for Ubuntu. Okay. There we go. Yeah, so it's finished downloading, and open the location, open with the software installer. Obviously you should only do this with software that you consider to be safe. It does say potentially unsafe, but we know we've downloaded it from the Google website, so it is safe. It's edited there. I'm going to add that to the favorites as well. The first thing I'm going to do is install OneDrive. Now, obviously we're running Linux, and OneDrive's a Microsoft product. Microsoft does not support Linux, which is no surprise, but there is a OneDrive client that does work with Linux. I'm going to install this first because then it can be syncing in the background and downloading the files, because unlike the OneDrive on Windows, which will just download the files as required, OneDrive for Linux does download them all the files, and keeps them in sync that way. So I'm going to just use a terminal, and I use the terminal a lot, so I'm just going to put that straight on the taskbar. That's going to be one of my favourites. Increase the size of that, make it easy to see. In fact, I know I've been asked before about having my mouse pointer nice and large. Helps everyone really, makes it nice and easy to see, but also specifically for those with sight difficulties, then that can be a great help. Might be in accessibility settings. Here we go. So I just did a quick search for accessibility. As I was typing the first few keys, that was enough. Cursor size, there we go. That was probably a nice size. I'm going to do an apt update first, just to make sure we are on the latest version. We are here because it did ask me to install the updates earlier, and I did do that, so that's fine. Sudo apt install OneDrive. Just create the directory first, OneDrive. Not sure whether it automatically creates it, but no harm in doing so. And now just run OneDrive, and this is going to give you the URL to synchronize with, or to authenticate with OneDrive and to start the synchronization. So copy and paste that to here, enter username and then password details. What you then do actually is you take this response URI, that's that, and paste that there. Application has been successfully authorized. We can now run OneDrive -- synchronization, synchronize rather. And as you can see, that's starting to download the files. and it's putting them in the OneDrive folder. And we'll leave that to synchronize. One of the things I found when synchronizing OneDrive is that it would just fail without giving any reason and just stop. You can just run the synchronize again and it carries on from where it got to. But if you've got a large amount of files on OneDrive, it may take a long time to download. And if you have to keep restarting it, that can be quite frustrating. And one of the things you can do is use the OneDrive minus synchronize, but then if you put a semicolon, then it will run the second command afterwards. And then if you put another one, you can do multiple ones. And so this is the command I did where I 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I used 9 instances, and basically it would run the synchronize. If it failed at any point in that, then it moves on to the next one. If it fails, it moves on to the next one, until you get to the point where you can see that it's completed synchronizing. And that's just a way that you can leave it unattended, because otherwise you've got to keep an eye on it and keep restarting it. I'm going to start by looking at what's installed already and some general applications that many people will use. By launching the applications software installer, it is on the favorites there, or if you click on the activity menu, which is what this show applications, you can start typing software, and it's this one, Ubuntu software. And you'll see that there is a huge amount of software available. We can first look at what's installed. As you can see, there's the usual utilities, things like Archive Manager to view zip and gzip files, Firefox I've already mentioned, utilities such as the calculator, and then this is the main things, is there's LibreOffice. So that's perhaps the biggest application that's installed as standard. Comparable with Microsoft Office, these use the open document format, but can both read and write in the Microsoft formats as well. We've got Writer for word processor. We've got Impress, presentation like PowerPoint, Calc, which is like Excel, and LibreOffice Draw, which is something that isn't included as standard in the normal Office, Microsoft Office tools, and is a vector drawing application, and that's really useful. I use that an awful lot. We can scroll around, there's a few more. The Rhythm Box is the music player. Shotwell is the photo viewer. We'll take a look at that in a minute. And there's a video player as well, and some other utilities. If we go back to Shotwell, show you Shotwell as an application. This is I won't import anything. A photo viewer with some basic edit tools included in it. It is quite basic though, and I prefer to use GIMP. GIMP is a much more complicated software to start with, but it's very powerful. It's considered the open source alternative to Photoshop. So how can we install it? So if we go into the Explore, you can see there's lots and lots of applications. We'll be installing some of these in here. If just give you an idea of how much free software is available, it is massive. There's just so much, and these are just the ones that are included in the repositories for Ubuntu. There's even more that you can install through other means. So feel free to take a look and just browse through some of these and find some of the things you want in. I'm going to go into Art and Design, and we're going to find GIMP, the GNU Image Manipulation Program. And literally installing it is as simple as clicking install. You'll be asked for your password, which is authenticating it for administration permissions, and it's literally just going over the internet and downloading and installing it. And this is one of the beauties of Linux. There's just so much available software. You don't need to buy licenses, you don't need to go to different places to find it all, you can just find it through this. And there you go, that's installed now. So we can just launch GIMP now. And there we go, you see this launches really fast on this computer. And you see there are all the tools there. So this does take a bit of a learning curve. Plenty of videos on YouTube or other resources available if you want to learn it, and it is well worth learning if you wanted to get into manipulating photos and images. Now we're going to look at using it as a beginner's programming PC. So thinking about programming Python, which is what I would generally consider to be the beginner's programming language. The editors I'm going to install aren't available in the software app, but they are available on the repositories. It's just a case of using the command line tools for that. So the first one I'm going to install is the Thonny editor, which is used by the Raspberry Pi Pico and various other things. It's quite a popular editor. So the command sudo, so that we're going to run as root, so that's quite a common command that you'll see. Apt to use the app tools with the install option, and we're going to install Thonny, which is a Python IDE. Okay, have to enter your password, and then it's going to tell you it's going to install the editor, but it's also got a lot of dependencies, and what's that saying is that you also need all these other tools as well to be able to do the programming or to be able to run the application. So yes, we'll just accept that, and it's going to install all those files for us. And that's it installed. As you can see, you get a bit more information than when you're using it through the software installer GUI, but effectively it's doing the same as what that was doing. And we can see Thonny is installed now. I'll just launch that. And there we go, there's the Thonny's editor or IDE. Similar one is the Mu editor, and Mu editor is designed for beginners, but it's particularly good if you're wanting to learn Python, works with a microbit and also with Pygame 0 to make it easy to make graphical games. So same command as before, sudo apt install, and this time it's Mu editor that I'm installing. As you can see, that's got a load more dependencies as well that it's going to install. We'll just say yes to those. And this is going to take a long time because it's got so many dependencies. But and now we can just see the Mu editor that's installed. There does seem to be a problem with this version of Mu editor. Now, normally when you install from the repository, the software has been quite well tested and usually works quite well. There does seem to be a slight problem with this. I don't know what the problem is. I'll come back and revisit that and hopefully get that done another time. Another development tool I use is just a basic text editor, but this is one I particularly like just because of its layout and the way you can use it. It's actually a Java based application called Jedit. I'm just going to install that as well. and I find this is useful when I'm wanting to look at different code side by side. I've particularly been recently creating some tests, and it's useful. I can have the code on one side and the tests on the other. So just try that, Jedit. There we go. This. One of the reasons I like this is because I can have it on multiple computers. I can have the same application, same environment, same way of working, even if I'm on a Windows computer or something like that. So there's a follow-on from the programming. I'm now going to look at some maker tools, things like Arduino, used for developing microcontroller based software, and some 3D printing, and also some electronics design tools. Have a look on here. So if we go onto the main application installer, you can do a search and just type in Arduino, and there is a version here. It's the 1.8 version, and that's still a current version that's in use, but they also have got a version 2 as well. Because they're so different, they're continuing to develop both side by side at the moment, but I suspect version 2 will become the predominant one in future. So if I go to Arduino.cc and we go to the software, there's an option to download, and as you see that they are still recommending by putting it on top, the 1.8 version. But if you scroll down, there's version 2 is in release candidate 2. So we can download, there's an application image 64-bit version. That's the one we need. They do ask you for a donation, and if you'd like to help support that, then obviously that's something you can do, or you can just click just download, and then it'll download that one. Now it's downloading it as an application image. So this is an application image. So this is like an executable file, say on Windows, that's just a single file. So we can just try running that, give it executable permission, and just do. So we need libfuse to install this. So one of the advantages of using the package manager, using apt install, is that it goes and downloads these automatically. But so we can find libfuse. I think it's looking for libfuse 2, so we'll install that. Agrees, and that will just launch from that folder as an application. Now, at the moment, that's in the downloads directory. I like to put applications that I download like this into a new directory called /opt, standing for /optional software. Oh, already exists. I'm going to make a directory. Right. To run this as sudo, to run it as a root user. /opt/Arduino 2. And then I could just move this to /opt/Arduino 2. Now you can add start shortcuts to that and things like that, but I'm going to leave that at the moment. So if I want to launch it, I would just do shop/Arduino 2/Arduino IDE. Another example software that I'm going to install is FreeCAD. So this is a computer-aided design. Where's it? Computer-aided design software for creating 3D models. And I'll just do that through here. Not sure why it's listed twice. This one's version 0.2, so this is the newer version, so that's what I'm going to install. While waiting for that to install, I'm also going to set off a download of Ultimaker Cura. So Ultimaker is the manufacturer and Cura is the software that is used for slicing ready for 3D printing. There are some others that are available, and there's probably a version in the repository, but I like to get the latest version. And I'm going to choose the 64-bit Linux modern 64-bit. Not sure the difference. I'll try this, and this is another version, one that's an application image. So as you can see, we can be running these simultaneously. This one's still installing. So as you can see, you can install these both at the same time, but what you can't do is install using this GUI application and using apt install at the same time. So that's quite an important distinction, because this does use apt tools in the background. You won't be able to use apt install at the same time because they will conflict with each other, but we can just download these files. And I'm going to do the same. So this is in the download directory. I'm going to give it the execute permission, and then I'm going to create another directory in the opt. I'm just going to call it Cura. And then I can just run that. Now, one of the things I do often do is just create some shortcuts so that I could just type Cura instead of having to type all this. But using tab completion, then it's normally quite straightforward enough. And in the meantime, FreeCAD's also installed. So I can launch FreeCAD. And this is a great tool for being able to create 3D models ready for 3D printer with the cases for projects. I've got some more videos on using FreeCAD, so do check the description to find out more about those. And then another one is KiCAD, which is used for creating PCBs and electronic circuit designs. I'm going to install that as well, and I could just do that through here. And that's installed now, so now we can just try running that as well. And you see KiCAD consists of a few different tools, and if we just launch KiCAD, it gives you the option to import settings from previously, but I'm just going to start with default. This is where you can design electronic circuits. I have created a whole series of creating a PCB with KiCAD, so do check my description for details about that. So now I'm going to look at some video editing tools that I use. This is one of the reasons I wanted this desktop, to make it easier to edit videos. And we're going to use the software installer again. The one thing I've already installed is Simple Screen Recorder. I used apt to install that, and that obviously installed that so I could create these videos, otherwise I wasn't able to screen capture these. So that was the first thing I did. If we look in the photo and video option, the one I particularly use is Kdenlive. This is quite powerful editor and found it really useful. It's not as intuitive or as easy to use as some applications which have more basic GUIs, but it is very powerful, and it's what I use for editing almost all my videos nowadays. So we can see that installed. And there we go, it's timeline. That's a really useful tool. It's also useful to be able to manipulate audio, and actually this one happens to be on the editor's choice at the moment. So this is Audacity, and this is a audio software recording and editing tool. And here's that in action. So it's installed by Snap, and it's asking you to give it additional permissions. So if I just enter that command, and you can see in this gives timeline editing of audio tracks, allows you to record and various things. Also for my videos I create some animations. I've created another video on some of the tools I use. Often use LibreOffice Impress. I also use my own software, PGZAnimation, which I'm going to show you in a minute, but one of the other ones that is really useful is Blender. This is a professional tool. You can use it for all kinds of things, and it's used by professional video studios and things like that. It's completely free and open source, which is a great piece of software. So we've got two versions here, and I just thought I'd investigate these a bit further. What it seems to be is that this one is the Debian package using this is the same version that you get if you just do sudo apt install Blender, and it's version 3.01, and this one is through the Snap store. It's a whole different way of creating packages using Snap. In the past I've noticed they've been slow, but this seems to be something they've overcome on here, and this seems to be working really well. And this is version 3.2.2, so this will be an update, a more up-to-date version, so I'm going to use that one. Blender is also something you can use to create animations. I've got a video on that, but also to create 3D models. It is just really such a very powerful tool, but it does have quite a steep learning curve, so feel free to look at my video or go and search for some other videos on YouTube if you're more interested in the 3D animation side, because mine concentrates on 2D or creating simple 3D shapes, which I've used for use in videos, and creating computer games as well. Again, I can show you what Blender looks like. So there we go, this is the Blender tool. So do expect to have to commit quite a bit of time if you want to learn that. And the final one for video editing, as I say, in animations, I created my own library called PGZAnimation. I'll just show you how you can install that, because that's a little bit different to how we've installed the software so far. So it's on GitHub, so if you go to github.com/penguintutor/PGZAnimation, and you can just click on code, and if you copy this, then you can install that using git clone, and then if you just paste that in there, look, you do have to install git first by the looks of it. So on the Raspberry Pi, I think this is included in the latest version, is git, so that's why I didn't really think you'd have to install it. But you just git clone and then the thing, and then if you look, it's created a directory called PGZAnimation, and it's got the demo animations in here. So for this, I'll just show you a quick example of some of the videos you can make, the animations you can make, and I've created an entire video on using that. So the final thing I'm going to look at here is installing games. Now, there is quite a bit of open source games included on here, and lots more available to download on the internet as well. But most of these tend to be more basic games. So if you're into your gaming, then you're probably going to look at Steam. Now, Steam does have a very good selection of games, but not as many as would be on a Windows PC. So if it's got the games that meet your requirements, then great. If not, then that's one of the reasons I've left my PC for dual boot, so that if I do want to play anything on Windows 11, then I can on that as well. I'm not really a big gamer, but I do like to have the odd game every now and again. So on this, you can go to the steam-powered website and click Install Steam. It doesn't actually have a Linux logo, but the Steam logo basically is the Linux version. You see it's a Debian package. So you can just save that. If you open that folder, oops, I've lost that, so we can just go to the usual downloads, and then open with software installer. And then should be able to just start Steam. So it's a bit different to the others in that the Debian package that you download initially is just an initial loader. Then it installs the dependencies that are required, and now it's running the usual update in Steam that you normally see when you, or quite often see when you start launching Steam. You can then log in using your normal account and access your games. And as you can see, you've got the normal Steam client. You can install and run Linux games from here. Most of the applications installed straight away and worked with no problems. The one program I haven't got working yet is Mu, which we'll probably remove and install from the website to get that version instead. Did you notice that when using Audacity I had to set some permissions? This is due to the way that the Snap applications work, and this caused a problem with another program, which is GIMP. GIMP works well editing files on the normal file system, but when I tried to edit a file on an external drive, it wasn't able to see the drive. This is due to the permissions problem, and it's easily fixed with the command shown here. Sudo snap connect, and then GIMP to, using the colon, removable -media. This is one of the downsides of Snap, in that it effectively runs the applications in their own security sandbox. As a result, the application doesn't have the same access as when installing using other methods. There are ways this could be overcome, such as entering this command. It's not quite as straightforward, so it's just something to be aware of when using the Snap applications. In summary, in this video you've seen how to install Ubuntu alongside Windows 11 in a dual boot setup. This allows you to run both operating systems and switch between them through a reboot. I've shown how to set up secureboot and also many of the applications that I use on my own computer. I'll be installing quite a bit more software in future, but this gives you an idea of some of the software that's available and some of the ones that I particularly like. I'll be creating some more Maker videos shortly. If you're interested in Maker projects, including Raspberry Pi, microcontrollers and programming, then please click that subscribe button and enable the notifications. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on a future video.